Imagine standing in the middle of an endless desert. No rivers, no forests, almost no rain, just endless sand stretching to the horizon where the scorching sun meets an empty sky. Now imagine someone pointing to that barren landscape and saying, "One day, this will become one of the richest and most recognizable cities on Earth." You'd probably laugh. How could a place with almost no natural resources, no farmland, and one of the harshest climates on the planet ever become home to record-breaking skyscrapers, luxury hotels, man-made islands, and millions of people from every corner of the world? It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what happened. Long before the world's tallest building pierced the clouds, before supercars lined the streets, before indoor ski slopes stood in the middle of the desert, this was a quiet fishing village, a place where families risked their lives diving deep beneath the waves for pearls, a place where survival depended on the sea and on the determination of the people who called it home. More than once it seemed destined to disappear. Its greatest industry collapsed. Its future looked hopeless. Many believed this tiny settlement would never become more than a forgotten stop along the Arabian Gulf. But while the rest of the world was focused on what Dubai didn't have, a handful of visionary leaders saw something no one else could. They understood a truth that would change history forever. They didn't need the world's greatest resources. They needed the world's greatest vision. What happened next wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was one of the boldest and most ambitious transformations ever attempted by mankind. A story of impossible decisions, unimaginable risks, and relentless determination. This is the story of how a tiny village became a global icon, how a city that should never have existed changed the world. Welcome to Dubai, and this is the impossible rise of a city built from nothing but sand, ambition, and a dream that refused to die. Part 1. Before the world knew Dubai. Long before towering skyscrapers reached into the clouds, before luxury hotels welcomed millions of visitors each year, before highways, shopping malls, and some of the most ambitious engineering projects on Earth, there was only sand. Thousands of years ago, the coastline along the Arabian Gulf was home to small communities living one of the hardest lives imaginable. There were no modern ports, no electricity, no air conditioning, no fresh water flowing through pipes. Every day was a fight against the unforgiving desert and the sea. The summer heat often climbed well above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Rain was rare. Fresh water was precious. Crops struggled to survive, and the endless desert offered little to sustain life. Yet people stayed, not because life was easy, but because they had learned to survive where most could not. The sea became their lifeline. Every morning, wooden boats known as dhows pushed away from the shoreline, carrying fishermen into the Gulf. Others sailed farther offshore, searching for something that, at the time, was nearly as valuable as gold: natural pearls. For centuries, the warm waters of the Gulf produced some of the finest pearls in the world. Before cultured pearls existed, every pearl sold in the great markets of Europe, India, and Asia had to be found the hard way. A diver would wrap a clip around his nose, place leather guards over his fingers, tie a stone weight to his feet, take one final breath, and disappear beneath the surface. No oxygen tanks, no modern diving equipment, only a single breath. They descended again and again, sometimes dozens of times in a single day. One mistake could cost them their lives. The deeper they dove, the darker the water became. Visibility faded. The pressure increased. Currents shifted without warning. Sharks and other dangers lurked below. Yet they continued because every oyster held the possibility of changing their family's future. Most contained nothing. Many days ended with little reward, but every now and then, someone found a pearl so beautiful it could provide enough money to feed a family for months. Entire communities depended on those moments. Life followed the rhythm of the sea: fishing, pearl diving, trading. Families built simple homes from coral stone, gypsum, palm trunks, and woven palm fronds. Markets buzzed with merchants exchanging spices, textiles, dates, and goods brought by ships traveling between East Africa, Persia, India, and the Arabian Peninsula. Although the settlement was small, its location was extraordinary. Sitting between three continents, it quietly became a crossroads for trade. Long before anyone imagined skyscrapers, ships were already carrying ideas, cultures, and commerce through these waters. That location would become one of Dubai's greatest strengths, but at the time, no one could have imagined what the future held. By the early 1900s, the pearl trade had transformed Dubai into one of the most important pearling centers in the region. Thousands of divers headed out each season, merchants prospered, families built their lives around an industry that had endured for generations. It seemed unstoppable. Everything the community had built rested on one fragile foundation. And then, halfway around the world, a breakthrough in Japan would trigger a chain of events that no one in Dubai could have predicted. It wouldn't involve an army. It wouldn't involve a war. It wouldn't involve a natural disaster. Instead, one invention would bring an entire economy to its knees. And for many people living in Dubai, it would feel like the end of everything. Part 2. The collapse that changed everything. The people of Dubai had survived the desert. They had survived the blistering heat, the dangerous sea, and generations of uncertainty. But nothing could prepare them for what happened next. The threat wasn't coming across the Arabian Gulf. It wasn't marching across the desert. It wasn't carried by an invading army. It arrived quietly from the other side of the world. In the early 1900s, a Japanese entrepreneur named Kokichi Mikimoto perfected something that would change the jewelry industry forever: cultured pearls. For centuries, natural pearls had been among the rarest treasures on earth. Finding one required thousands of dangerous dives, incredible patience, and a little luck. Now, pearls could be grown. They looked beautiful, they cost far less, and they could be produced in quantities the natural pearl trade could never match. Almost overnight, the value of natural pearls began to collapse. For Dubai, it was devastating. Families who had depended on pearling for generations suddenly found there were fewer buyers. Prices plummeted. Merchants struggled to stay afloat. Boats returned to shore carrying pearls that were now worth only a fraction of what they once had been. The wealth that had supported the settlement for generations was disappearing. Then the situation became even worse. The world entered the Great Depression. Luxury goods were no longer a priority for many buyers. Demand for pearls fell even further. Businesses closed. Work became scarce. Some families left in search of better opportunities elsewhere. Others wondered if Dubai's story was coming to an end. Looking back today, it's easy to assume success was inevitable. It wasn't. There was no skyline waiting to be built, no hidden fortune waiting just beneath the sand, only uncertainty. But in moments like these, history is often changed by people willing to think differently. Dubai's ruler, Sheikh Saeed bin Maktoum Al Maktoum, refused to accept decline as the city's future. He understood something many leaders overlooked. If Dubai couldn't compete through natural resources, it could compete by becoming the easiest place in the region to do business. Trade became the priority. Taxes remained low. Merchants were welcomed rather than burdened. Ships arriving from Persia, India, East Africa, and beyond found a port that encouraged commerce instead of restricting it. Slowly, the harbor became busier again. Not because pearls had recovered, they hadn't, but because Dubai was beginning to transform into something new. It was becoming a trading city. This wasn't a dramatic overnight success. There were no celebrations, no headlines, no instant riches, just thousands of small decisions made every day by merchants, sailors, craftsmen, and families determined to build a future instead of waiting for one. Without realizing it, they were laying the first stones of modern Dubai. Still, the city remained small. Its future was uncertain. No one knew whether these changes would be enough. Then, in the middle of the 20th century, geologists began searching beneath the desert. What they found would alter Dubai forever. But here's the twist. Oil would make Dubai wealthy, yet it wasn't the reason Dubai became one of the world's greatest cities. The decision that truly changed history came after oil was discovered, and almost no one saw it coming. Part 3. The decision that changed history. By the 1960s, Dubai was still a small trading town. Its harbor was growing. Merchants continued arriving from across the region. But compared to the world's great cities, it was still a little more than a dot on the map. Then everything changed. In 1966, offshore oil was discovered at the Fateh field. For many nations, this would have been the finish line. The money would begin flowing, governments would grow dependent on oil revenues, and life would revolve around a resource that seemed endless. Dubai's leaders saw something different. At the center of that vision was Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum. He believed oil wasn't the future, it was an opportunity. Legend has long credited him with a powerful idea. My grandfather rode a camel, my father rode a camel, I drive a Mercedes. My son drives a Land Rover, his son will drive a Land Rover, but his son may ride a camel again. Whether quoted exactly or paraphrased over the years, it captures the strategy that defined Dubai's leadership. Oil would not last forever. If Dubai built its future on a resource that could one day run out, its success would disappear with it. So instead of asking, how do we spend this money, they asked, how do we build a future that no longer needs it? That question changed everything. Oil revenue flowed into projects that many people at the time considered impossible. Modern roads connected communities that had once been separated by sand. Ports expanded to welcome larger ships from around the world. Airports were built with the expectation that one day millions of travelers, not thousands, would pass through them. Schools educated a new generation. Hospitals improved quality of life. Electricity and clean water reached more homes. Dubai wasn't simply becoming richer, it was becoming stronger. One of the boldest projects was the expansion of Dubai Creek. Many advisors warned against spending enormous sums dredging and widening the natural waterway. They argued it was too expensive, too risky, too ambitious. But the project went ahead. Larger cargo ships could now reach the heart of the city. Trade accelerated, business followed. Once again, Dubai proved something that would become part of its identity. When others saw risk, Dubai often saw opportunity. Then came another bold move. In 1979, the opening of the towering Dubai World Trade Center signaled that the city wasn't just thinking regionally anymore. It was introducing itself to the world. International companies began to notice. Investors started paying attention. The skyline was beginning to change. But the biggest leap was still ahead. Dubai's leaders realized that if the world wasn't coming to them fast enough, they would build a city the world couldn't ignore. What followed was unlike anything ever attempted. Artificial islands rising from the sea, luxury hotels that became global landmarks, airlines connecting every continent, and eventually, a skyscraper so tall it would redefine what humanity believed was possible. The world stopped asking, "Where is Dubai?" and started asking, "How did they do it?" But dreams this ambitious don't come without risk. As cranes filled the skyline and billions of dollars poured into construction, a storm was already forming. One that would test whether Dubai's miracle was real, or whether it had simply grown too fast. Part 4. The city that redefined the future. By the early 2000s, Dubai had become one of the world's biggest construction sites. Everywhere you looked, tower cranes filled the skyline. Entire neighborhoods were rising from the desert. Projects that would take decades elsewhere seemed to appear almost overnight. Then came the announcements that captured the world's imagination. An island shaped like a palm tree, another designed to resemble a map of the world, a luxury hotel built on its own artificial island, and a tower that would become the tallest building ever constructed by human hands. People around the globe watched in disbelief. Some called it visionary, others called it reckless. Many believed it couldn't last. Then, the world changed. In 2008, the global financial crisis swept across international markets. Banks failed, credit disappeared, construction slowed, investments vanished almost overnight. Even Dubai wasn't immune. Projects were delayed, developments paused, businesses faced uncertainty. For the first time in years, people began asking a question few had dared to consider. Had Dubai grown too fast? Was this the end of the miracle? The headlines were filled with doubt. Critics predicted abandoned skyscrapers, empty luxury hotels, a city built on ambition that had finally reached its limit. But Dubai had faced impossible odds before. It had survived the collapse of the pearl industry, it had transformed itself after discovering oil, and now it adapted once again. Projects were restructured, confidence slowly returned, construction resumed, visitors came back. Investors looked beyond the crisis and saw something many others had missed. Dubai wasn't simply selling buildings, it had built something much larger, a reputation, a global brand, a place where business, tourism, finance, innovation, and opportunity came together in one city. Over the following years, Dubai continued expanding. Its airport became one of the busiest international travel hubs on Earth. Its ports connected trade routes across continents. Technology companies established regional headquarters. Entrepreneurs from around the world arrived with new ideas. Luxury tourism continued to grow. And then, the impossible became reality. In 2010, the opening of the Burj Khalifa changed the skyline forever. Standing over 2,700 feet tall, it became the tallest building ever created by humanity. It wasn't simply an engineering achievement, it was a statement, a declaration that Dubai refused to think in ordinary terms. Today, millions of people visit Dubai every year. Walk through its streets and you'll hear dozens of languages, meet people from nearly every corner of the world, experience cultures living side by side in one of the most international cities on the planet. And perhaps the most surprising fact of all, today oil represents only a small portion of Dubai's economy. The city most people assume was built by oil was actually transformed by what came after it: trade, tourism, finance, real estate, technology, aviation, innovation. Dubai didn't become successful because it found oil. It became successful because its leaders believed one day they would have to live without it. That single idea shaped decades of decisions, and those decisions shaped one of the most remarkable urban transformations in modern history. So, what is the real lesson of Dubai? It's easy to believe extraordinary places are created by extraordinary luck, but history tells a different story. Again and again, Dubai faced moments that could have ended its journey: the collapse of the pearl trade, economic hardship, global financial crises, international skepticism. Each time, the city chose adaptation instead of surrender, vision instead of fear, long-term planning instead of short-term comfort. Perhaps that's why people remain fascinated by Dubai, not because it has the tallest buildings, not because of luxury hotels or man-made islands, but because it reminds us what can happen when people refuse to accept that impossible means impossible. A city that once struggled to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth now welcomes the world, and every shining tower across its skyline stands as a reminder that the greatest structures are not built from steel and glass alone. They are built from imagination. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the incredible stories behind the world's most fascinating places, be sure to subscribe to LTL Entertainment and join us for the next journey through history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep wondering, and never stop asking how the impossible became possible.